But I just want to go on now and say a little bit about three of the areas that we've been focusing on lately. So a bit more about public trust, say a little bit about fraud and cybercrime, and then just focus on some of the guidance that we've got in the pipeline or produced recently. So trust. Every couple of years we commission two surveys, one of the general public and one across charities. So many of you will remember getting a questionnaire. I think we had quite a big sample this year of charities. There's a good chance that many of you in the room were contacted by the researchers and asked what you thought of us. So you're about to find out what the results of that was. And we also contact members of the public and find out how they're feeling about charity matters. Now, we were a bit nervous this year because the questions were being asked in the week when the Oxfam scandal was all over the newspapers and in the media, so we were braced for some disappointing results, but in actual fact the levels of trust held up pretty well. So despite all of that going on, the public in Scotland seemed to feel that their levels of trust hadn't changed much from 2 years ago. So there's a lot in the surveys. We're just picking out some of the key information here. If you're interested, please go to the website, delve into the details. You've also got some of the information on that colourful handout on the tables. But 81% of charities say that they understand having the public's trust and confidence is important in terms of that donation. Worries me what the other 19% think, but that's a reasonably high number. 76%, and I think this is the public, say that knowing how much goes to the cause increases their trust. So you'll hear regulators like us saying a lot about transparency and openness and the importance of telling your story, and you're going to hear a bit more about that, I'm sure, later. In order to persuade people to part with their hard-earned cash, if you can demonstrate quite clearly what you do with it, how much of it goes through to help the cause that the charities, that will persuade people. So people have a legitimate question about money going off into overheads or other activity. I won't get bogged down in that debate. We're not sure that there is such a thing as overheads. Anything that's required to run a charity is making a contribution to the cause. But people do have an interest in what happens at the front line, and being able to demonstrate that clearly is a way of improving trust. Fortunately for us, 84% of the public said that charity regulation was important, so that's good. They didn't always know that there was a body called OSCR, but they have a sense that charities should be regulated independently. And this is a slightly different thing. The last statistic there is that 72% of people say evidence of the achievements increases trust. So part of running your charity well is telling that story so that your existing supporters and potential new supporters get a clear sense of what happens after they've donated, when they've volunteered or given support. So telling that story about the impact you achieve, a really important job for trustees. So 5 different things you could do. Tell the public you are a registered charity. It is a legal requirement on your websites, on your published material, to display your charity number. We've got a logo, and I think you'll see that in a minute if you haven't seen it already. It's free to download. It's easy on the Scottish Charity Register. You can include that in your material, and it does have a real impact on people's confidence, seeing clearly that you're a registered charity. Run your charity well. We know the dedication of charity trustees. It's a huge kind of volunteer labour force that keeps charities running, and we don't underestimate how difficult that can be. Sometimes disputes arise, sometimes you'll have funding challenges, operational challenges, things to deal with that as volunteers is asking quite a lot of you. But the public does expect a charity to operate to a high standard of governance, and that's the key role of the trustee. File your accounts on time and stop our team having to send out kind of increasingly grumpy reminders. 9 months after the end of your business year, that's the point at which your annual return should be made. Most of you manage that. There are a few we have to chase. I mentioned this already. Tell your story, show the difference you've made, use your trustees' annual report, not just as a legal account of what happened at your AGM, but use it as an opportunity to tell your story, and use whatever imaginative means you have at your disposal to get that message out there. And if you have changes that you think we might want to know about, please let us know. Don't just wait until your annual return comes in. If there are significant changes, it's a good idea just to keep your register entry up to date. And here it is. This is what the logo looks like. Anyone downloaded it recently? No? Oh, there's a wee hand. Was it all right? Was it painless? Good. There we are. Good. So, moving on a little bit from the evidence around trust and what helps there, focus a little bit on some of the risks and pitfalls that are out there. 2 years ago, I went on a wee bit of an internal secondment, so I went back into Scottish Government and worked in their digital directorate, and it was part of the effort to get our heads around this digital world that we now live in. And we used to say it's not a digital future, it is now. It is a digital present, it is a reality. Being digital is just the way the world is now. And for charities, therefore, embracing that and accepting the reality of operating in a world that's increasingly online, where most people are getting their information through their phone. That's just the reality of how we live, and therefore it's a reality that charities have to deal with. And there are tremendously positive things that come with all of that, but there are also some risks. And fraud, cybercrime, as charity trustees, you need to be just aware. So it's not just looking after the cash box and keeping your people safe, but there are information risks, and there are just simple protections that you can put in place. So you know about this in your private life. It's the same within your charities. Be very careful about phishing emails or bogus contacts, particularly around banking information. Ransomware, very difficult. That does happen. Charities are no less exempt from that than other walks of life. So very, very difficult to deal with those kind of attacks. Viruses, make sure that you keep all your software up to date, that you apply the patches, that your kind of spyware and everything is updated regularly, because the hackers are continually developing new things, so you must keep your defences up to date as best you can. And increasingly, in the run-up to May, when GDPR was all we heard about, thinking about data, you will hold data, some of it personal, some of it sensitive personal data. Just be sure that you are observing the requirements of data protection in order to keep information about your volunteers and your staff as safe as they would expect. We do have a fact sheet on this, both on cybercrime and on fraud, so if you think that's something you might want to just brush up your knowledge on, those are all available on the website. And in terms of other guidance, we, a couple of years ago, produced guidance around fundraising when there was a review of how fundraising was regulated. By and large, it's self-regulated, but there is a role for the regulator behind that to make sure that trustees understand their responsibilities. So We do have guidance around fundraising. The one in the centre, that would be the thing I would direct any new trustee to. Being a charity in Scotland, that's really the best place to start if you want the introduction to what's involved and what that means for trustees. That's really the best starting point. And recently we've produced some guidance on charities and trading. In the pipeline are updates on the guidance about Scottish Charitable Incorporated Organisations, SCIOs as they're affectionately known. Those of you who are a SCIO will know what that's all about. It's a very popular new legal form. We've got about 3,500 SCIOs now on the charity register. So it's a way of protecting trustees without full incorporation as a company. So it's a purpose-designed legal vehicle that gives you some of the benefits of incorporation without having to register with Companies House. So SCIO is proving to be a very popular new legal form. We'll be updating our guidance on consents, on accounts, and our guidance for independent examiners. And then the last one there is new guidance. Some charities were asking about investments, so we've had a working group with support from Laura Anderson lurking at the back there. So that group will shortly be issuing new guidance around investments. So as I say, there's a whole range of specific pieces of guidance available. If there are particular technical issues that you're facing, you might find an answer on the website. But it's not just OSCR who will help you. The charitable sector does what it says on the tin, and there's lots of offers of help wherever you might want to go. So Institute of Fundraising maintain the code of practice on fundraising. Volunteer Scotland will help you find volunteers, and that includes trustee positions. So if you're looking for committee members or new board members, Volunteer Scotland can help you. Scottish mediation, we often say that a lot of things that get resolved to the regulator might be better dealt with through mediation. So they might be a source if you've got some interpersonal strains around your board or between your board and your staff. We know these things happen. Sometimes mediation's as good a way of sorting it out as any. Locally, EVOC is one of the third sector interface organisations. Every local authority area has a third sector interface. So Edinburgh has a very strong organisation who will help bodies who think they might want to become charities, or bodies who already are charities and are facing some problems. So that's a great source of support. SCVO, most of you know who SCVO are. Got some at the back of the room there. Nice to see Tracy and Rhonda. They're not always kind of together. I did see them separately the other day, so it's a rare sight to see one or the other. But we work very closely with SCVO, and they're there with a lot of advice for members and for non-members. A lot of useful advice for trustees. And the Good Governance Award is obviously an accolade that you can apply to, but I think most of you will know that there's also been a lot of consultation recently about a good governance code for Scotland. Pat's organisation, ACOSVO, has been very heavily involved in that, as have we. So there will soon be a third sector governance code that's a useful checklist for your organisations. I know some of you will have contributed to the consultation around that. So it's always good to just look at the frameworks of good governance and use that as an assessment about how your own organisation is measuring up.